You want to know the best tool for making your indie game or game jam game? It's Pocket Platformer from itch.io user The Lobster. Today, I'm going to give you a complete rundown on how Pocket Platformer works and how you can use it to make a really good platform game really quick. To get to Pocket Platformer, there's a million different ways. Here's three. You can go to Google and search for Pocket Platformer and click on probably the first result. You can go to itch.io and search for Pocket Platformer and definitely click on the first result. Or you can use the link in the description below. Regardless, nevertheless, no matter how you get there, this is the screen you're looking for. And you're looking for that button right there in the upper area that says Run Tool. Go ahead and click Run Tool, and Pocket Platformer, the fantastically small and wonderful game engine, will load, presenting you with 4 areas in which to create your game from. We're going to go ahead and start with the center area here, which is called the Game Screen area. You can think of it as the gameplay area and the game editor area because it serves as both where you will test and play your game and also where you will place tiles and characters and objects. To switch between the two modes, playing and editing, there's a button in the lower left-hand corner there that says play. If you click it, it says stop, and so you can click it to stop. But Pocket Platformer allows you to edit quite a lot of things while you're actually playing your game, and unlike Unity that doesn't save any of those changes while you're in play mode, Pocket Platformer does. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the game screen, also what I call the game editor play testing area. Up top, you have the level selector where you can see which level you're editing or which level you would be play testing if you hit the play button. And you can use that left arrow to go back to the start screen where you can actually add tiles for decoration and sort of set up the story for your game, even on the start screen. The text there, example name, can be changed over on the left-hand side, but don't go there right yet because we're going to touch on that area of the game engine in just a few seconds. All right, so we're going to hit the forward arrow to go to level 1, and you simply can build your level in there. Building a level in Pocket Platformer is super easy. You just select which tile you would like. We're going to go over all of them in just a second. Select the tile that you would like and then left click to draw it on the screen, place it in whichever grid square you would like, and right click and either drag or right click just a single time to remove things from the screen. There are also some tiles in Pocket Platformer which you can drag around. The player sprite is one of those that you can drag and position somewhere. Blocks you cannot drag, you can only draw. So we're back at a blank level 1. To add a new level, you simply hit the plus sign there, and you can see now we're on level 2. It's worth noting that every level you create needs at least one thing, and that is a start flag. The start flag can be found over in the Build Tools section. On the Objects tab, we're going to go over all of these in a second, and it's the first option there, or the first one that currently looks like a flag, and that is where the player will start from. If you move your player somewhere else on the screen and then go back a level and go forward a level, you can see Pocket Platformer puts the character right back on that start flag. So while it's very useful to be able to drag your character around and test various parts of the level without actually having to play to them, just know that when you leave the level and come back to it using the level arrow keys at the top, Pocket Platformer will put that character right back on the starting spot, which is also helpful. Also note that the reason why I say you have to have that is because if you get rid of the start flag and then toggle back to the level, Pocket Platformer places that character in the upper left-hand corner and your game is unplayable. The other thing that you might want to consider adding if you'd like people to access other levels of your game and then eventually complete your game is the ending flag. The ending flag is again on the Objects tab, and it's the third flag over, and you place that wherever you would like the character to exit this particular level. So only one of those things is required to actually play, that is the start flag, but the end flag is required if you'd like the game to actually end or you'd like to transition to other levels. Deleting a level is easy enough. You just quadruple check that you're on the level that you would like to delete, and then you hit the delete button right there next to the arrows. You can also then navigate to the end screen, and again, just like the start screen, you can use the tiles and sprites to decorate or add story to your end screen. Wrapping up our tour on the game settings window, you'll see 2 buttons over on the right-hand side. Unless you're on the end screen or the start screen, then you'll just see the 1 button. But if you're on a level, you'll see 2 buttons. The first one is always available. The Change World Appearance area lets you change the background color of your entire game. It's not per level, it's for the entire game. Lets you change the background color for that. It also lets you change the text color, which is what appears when the game is starting and says press enter to continue, and also the end text, which tells people how many coins they collected or whatever your collectible object was. Below that, you have the effects area where you can add effects, and effects are per level. So you can just click on add, and you can add a particle effect, flashlight. You can see all the different effects you can add there. Once you select the effect that you would like, you can use the select levels twirl down to select which levels you would like that effect to apply to. You then use the adjust attributes twirl down to adjust the properties of that particular effect. And then when you are done, you would hit the add effect button and you can see that particle effect is now listed. We can go back and edit it and hit apply changes, or we can delete it, or we can add another one. The second button in the upper right-hand corner there is the change level size button, where you can adjust the width and the height of your level, and the camera will track the player wherever he or she should travel. We'll hit OK, and then we're going to move to the panels to the right, but we're going to jump over the top of that draw panel there and head to the settings panel. In the settings area, you have the game's name. That bit of text only shows up on the very first start screen before you begin the game, and then you have the ending message. That bit of text only shows up after the last level has been completed. Below that, you have the player attributes, probably the most important section of the particular settings area. In here, you can adjust what type of features the player has: jump, double jump, dash, wall jumping. And then you can also adjust the properties or the values or the amounts for each of the different settings listed below. My advice is, before you start making a game, before you start designing levels, dial in the way the player is going to work. That way you know which types of jumps it can make on a single or a double, which platforms are too high for it to reach. It's a really good idea to just dial in those settings first, then you can design your levels around those particular settings. And I'll show you a way to do that really quickly. What I like to do is just start with a level before I get designing. You can get rid of everything, even the start flags, and then I'll drag my guy to the bottom over here on the left. We'll also get rid of this start flag, go over to the Objects tab, select a start flag, and put that right in the corner so that if we toggle off this level, our player character gets positioned right there in the lower left-hand corner. Then what I like to do is take any tile from the Tiles panel. I'll just grab this kind of default one here, and go over 2 spaces and put up a 2-column tower, and then a 3-column tower, and then a 4-column tower, and then a 5-column tower, just keeping a little bit of space in between those. And this will be test 1. And now I like to play the game by adjusting different settings to see at these settings how far can the player get. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn off wall jump while I'm doing that. And you'll notice Pocket Platformer actually turns that setting off while the game is still being played. I didn't have to stop and start the game. So I can just really quickly start adjusting these settings to the way that I want them to feel, and then also see how many columns I can jump over. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the game, add a new level, and then clear everything off, including the start flag. Then I'm just going to select anything from the Tiles tab, and I'll go ahead and just draw something all the way across the screen, just to see at different jump heights, what can I comfortably get over. So there we go. I just put a row of spikes at the bottom there so that the player dies when it misses the jumps and starts over, instead of me having to toggle the level back and forth. So in this type of test level, I'm just trying to figure out what distances I can get away with at different jump heights and different in-air accelerations. You really want to dial that in before you start designing your levels, so that you're designing your levels around the character's abilities instead of adjusting those things where you already have a bunch of levels designed and then you're like, oh, I made it jump a little higher, but now this jump sequence that was hard on level 2 or 3 is now easy, and so I need to go adjust that. You'll save a little bit of time if you dial in the character attributes before you start designing your levels. Right below that, you have the import and the export, probably the 2 most important buttons in Pocket Platformer, because these also serve as your save and restore functions. To save your progress while building a Pocket Platformer game, you just hit the export button there, and it will generate a name of your game.html file. You can go ahead and hit import, choose the file that you exported, hit open, and you can see you're right back where you started, having access to all your levels. I would advise exporting early and exporting often. That wraps up the settings tab. We're going to now head all the way over to the build tools tab, all the way over on the left. The Build Tools window, in addition to having the play and stop button, has 4 different tabs, and those 4 different tabs hold 3 different types of sprites. Let's talk about the first type, and the first tab there, the one that looks like a square. Those are your tile sprites. Tile sprites could also be thought of as solids or as blocks. They're things that the player will collide with and not be able to pass through. So currently you have 12 slots for just a standard run-of-the-mill block or solid sprite, and that's represented by these first 4 rows right here. But you also have the remaining 4 sprites here, but those are all special use blocks or special use solids. One is a one-way platform block that you can jump up through and then land on, but not jump down through. The next one is a disappearing, and then you have your red and blue switch blocks there. You can redesign any of them by just selecting them and heading over to the draw window, but we're going to talk about that in just a second. All right, so those are the solids or the blocks or the tiles category of sprites. The next category of sprites and the next tab over is what's called objects, or I would call them utility sprites or utility tiles. All of these tiles have special features or special functions that they are used for. And you can find out what they're used for by selecting one and then reading its description over on the draw window. And again, you can change the look of all of these sprites, but we'll get into that in just a second. So go through there, see all the different utility object sprites, and you can place those on the screen just by left-clicking, and you can remove them by right-clicking on them. It's worth noting that many of the utility object sprites have additional parameters which you can access by left-clicking on the sprite after it's been placed. So for example, if you select the cannon utility object and place it somewhere, you can click on it again to determine the speed of which the cannonballs fly and the frequency at which they're launched. And likewise, you can take the spike object and place it anywhere, and you can determine whether or not it's facing up, down, left, or right. The third tab in the third category of sprite or tile in Pocket Platformer is the decoration tab or the decoration sprites, also called just deco. These sprites have no game functionality and do not interact with the game or the player in any way. They're just there for decoration. But they do have one really neat feature, and that is that they are rendered on a layer behind the block layer. So you can go ahead and put a bunch of ladders, we'll say right here, which are currently looking like a fence. And if you had a block, we'll just go ahead and go back to the Tiles tab, select the first one, and then I'll get rid of half this particular tile. I'm just going to go ahead and right-click and erase that. And if I place that over the top of the ladder, you can see that I can see the tile and I can see the decoration tile behind it. All right, our last tab in the Build Tools area is the Custom tab, where you put your custom sprites. And it is different than the other three. The other three tabs hold specific types of tiles: solids, utility things, and decorations. The Custom tab can hold any of those things. Because you're creating custom sprites there, you can create custom sprites that are of the type block or of utility or decoration. To do that, you just click on the plus button, and Pocket Platformer would then like to know what type of tile, what type of sprite would you like to create. And when you click this down, you don't just get three options for tile, for utility, or for decoration. You get all the different types of sprites. You can therefore duplicate the functionality of lots of different types of sprites in Pocket Platformer to get a second version of it and then change the way that it looks. So for example, if I wanted two characters that I could talk to in a scene, I have the one NPC already that's on the Object Utility tab, but I could just go ahead and select this drop down, choose NPC as the type of tile I would like to duplicate, hit OK, and then I have another one there, and then again I can just change the way that it looks from there. I think currently you get 18 spots for additional sprites. All right, we're on our last window here, the draw window, and the draw window is where you get the description of what the particular sprite that you have selected does, and it's also where you change its appearance. And changing its appearance is really easy. You can do it in two ways. First, you select the sprite from the left from the build tools. It'll load over there in the draw panel, and then you can right-click to erase parts, and then you can left-click to draw parts. If you don't have a color selected, you can select the color button, choose a color, and then draw in your sprite. And you can see that erasing takes a little bit of time. And so what I like to do is I like to go over to the decoration tab, and then the second flower over there, or the second tile over there right next to the grass, I like to just go ahead and get rid of everything in there. And the reason why I do that is this little handy button here, the third button over in the draw window. If you click that, what Pocket Platformer will do is it will copy the graphics, it will copy the pixels from any sprite you've already created so that you can use that as a foundation for creating a new sprite. And I think it's helpful to have one that's empty, and if you choose that second flower, it'll always be right over here on this slot right here, and so you can always start from a blank spot. So I can just change the way this particular sprite looks if I wanted to create some sort of additional plant object there. And you can do that for any of the sprites that are available. The only other button there is the eyedropper, which you can do to select colors quickly. Two more really important things on the Draw tab, though, is this drop down at the top will tell you which sprite you are currently editing, but it will also give you access to edit or change the look of sprites that are not available over in the build tools. Most notably, the player sprites and the player animation frames, which you can see under here under player jump and player idle. That's where you would change the way that your player looks. Also in this drop-down list are the special effects sprites, which affect the particles. You saw SFX 5 and 6 earlier when we were in the particles section, and the edge block, which is a fun one. If you select the edge block, you can go ahead and change what those edges look like, including making them look like nothing. The last part of the draw window are the animation frames. A number of tiles in Pocket Platformer, including all of the decoration tiles, get a second frame of animation. So you can go ahead and select a decoration sprite or create a new one using the custom tab. And then over in the draw window, you'll see you get 2 different frames of animation that will just loop back and forth together. Worth noting that almost all of the tile, the solid, the block sprites do not get animation frames. The only exception to that would be the red and blue switch blocks, and those are not animation frames. The second frame is shown when the red block is inactive and the first frame when it is active. And incidentally, you can find the red-blue block switcher under the Objects tab or the Utilities area, and it's the block there that has the R in the middle of it. And again, you can change the way it looks as well. A great place to start when building a game with Pocket Platformer is to first start by adjusting the player's move settings so you get those feeling really good and dialed in the way that you want them. Then I go over to the tile section, I select the first tile there, and then over in the draw panel, I'll go ahead and select the Copy Pixels menu button there. I'm going to choose my empty flower right there so I have a blank palette, and then I'm just going to choose the color white there and create a sort of temporary block that I can use. That way I don't get sort of caught up in the way things look, and I'm more testing the way things feel and the way that you move through the level. So we'll go ahead and just draw out a simple level here. I have a starting flag, so the character will start there. I'm going to go ahead and erase that end flag. Then I'll go ahead and choose the ending flag and put that over there, and then press play and just move through the level to make sure everything is working. And then I start thinking, what is the point of this level? Is this a level that's introducing one of the features, introducing the use of a double jump, introducing the use of a wall jump? Is it a story level? Is this level supposed to be really hard? It's a really good idea to not put everything all in the first level, but to introduce those things gradually. So I'd start off with a level that introduced just the basic jump mechanic, and then create another level. We'll go ahead and clear out of everything. And I will go ahead and create something that then introduces the double jump mechanic. So we'll put a space there that can only be achieved by doing a double jump, and we need to first turn on the double jump, and I'll turn off wall jump. Then we'll go ahead and test that. So there you go. Now we have a level that can only be completed by the player performing a double jump, and lets them know that that is going to be a key feature to your game. If you had other mechanics like the dash or the wall jump, you might want to create a third and fourth level that introduce those concepts before they become necessary to complete a level. That's it for the overview of Pocket Platformer. If you got a personal project that you're working on or a game jam coming up, I would highly recommend that you check out this amazing, small, free game engine. It's available on itch.io, and thanks to the Lobster for creating it.